The jungle was alive with the roar of a torrential downpour, sheets of rain hammering the canopy above. Deep within the heart of the forest, where the vines twisted like serpents and the air was thick with the scent of wet earth, two tiger cubs huddled beneath a gnarled banyan tree. Their golden fur was soaked, their amber eyes wide with fear as they let out plaintive cries, their small voices barely audible over the storm's fury. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating their trembling forms, alone and vulnerable. Their mother had vanished hours ago, leaving them to face the wrath of nature. The cubs pressed closer, their tiny bodies shivering, their desperate calls for help swallowed by the relentless rain. The storm showed no mercy, its winds howling like a chorus of ghosts through the trees. The cubs, barely a few months old, didn't understand why their mother hadn't returned. The elder cub, with a faint scar across its ear, nudged its sibling, urging it to stay awake. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and the cold seeped into their bones. Suddenly, a rustle in the undergrowth made them freeze. Eyes glinted in the shadows, a pair, then another. The cubs' cries grew frantic, their tiny roars echoing with desperation. Whatever was out there was watching, waiting, and the cubs sensed danger closing in. As the storm raged on, a low growl rumbled from the darkness. The cubs whimpered, pressing themselves against the tree's roots. Then, emerging from the shadows, a massive figure appeared. Not their mother, but a lone male tiger, his amber coat scarred from battles long past. His eyes burned with an unreadable intensity as he stalked closer, his massive paws sinking into the muddy earth. The cubs froze, their hearts pounding. Was this salvation or doom? The male tiger paused, sniffing the air, his gaze locked on the trembling cubs. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The male tiger took a step forward, his tail flicking with deliberation. The cubs, too young to understand his intent, let out a chorus of high-pitched cries, their voices piercing the storm's roar. But instead of attacking, the tiger lowered his head, his massive jaws inches from the cubs. He sniffed them, his warm breath washing over their shivering bodies. Then, in a move that defied his fearsome appearance, he gently nudged the elder cub, urging it to stand. The cubs hesitated, their instincts torn between fear and trust. The male let out a soft chuff, a sound that seemed to carry a promise of protection. The male tiger turned, glancing back at the cubs as if to say, "Follow me, Dash." With no other choice, the cubs stumbled after him, their small paws slipping in the mud. The jungle was a maze of shadows and water, the rain blurring their vision. The male led them through tangled vines and swollen streams, his powerful form cutting a path through the chaos. The cubs struggled to keep up, their tiny bodies pushed to the limit. Yet, the male never let them fall too far behind, pausing to wait when they faltered, his eyes glowing like beacons in the storm. Deep in the jungle, the trio reached a rocky outcrop, a natural shelter carved into the side of a hill. The male tiger ushered the cubs inside, where the roar of the storm was muffled and the air was dry. The cubs collapsed, exhausted but safe, their tiny chests heaving. The male stood guard at the entrance, his silhouette framed against the flashing lightning. For the first time in hours, the cubs felt a flicker of hope. But questions lingered. Where was their mother? And why was this stranger helping them? The male's eyes scanned the jungle, as if he, too, was searching for answers. As dawn broke, the storm began to weaken, the rain softening to a drizzle. The cubs stirred, their hunger now unbearable. The male tiger, sensing their need, ventured into the jungle and returned with a small deer, its body still warm. He dropped it before the cubs, nudging it toward them. They hesitated, unsure, but their hunger won out, and they tore into the meal with ravenous energy. The male watched, his expression unreadable, but his presence steady. It was clear he had no intention of abandoning them, at least not yet. The jungle was quiet now, save for the drip of water from the leaves. The male tiger lay down near the cubs, his massive body a shield against the outside world. As the cubs finished their meal, they curled up beside him, drawn to his warmth. For a moment, the trio seemed like a family, bound not by blood but by survival. But the peace was fragile. Somewhere in the jungle, danger still lurked. Their mother's absence was a mystery that gnawed at the edges of their fragile safety. Suddenly, a distant roar shattered the silence, a sound both familiar and terrifying. The cubs' ears perked up, their eyes wide with recognition. It was their mother. The male tiger rose instantly, his muscles tensing, his gaze fixed on the jungle beyond. The roar came again, closer this time, laced with urgency. The cubs scrambled to their feet, their hope reignited but tempered by fear. The male let out a low growl, stepping toward the cave's entrance, ready to face whatever was coming. The mother tiger burst into the clearing, her coat torn and bloodied, her eyes wild with desperation. She froze when she saw the male, her hackles rising. The cubs cried out, rushing toward her, but the male stepped between them, his posture protective yet cautious. The mother's roar shook the trees, a warning to the stranger. But as their eyes met, something passed between them, an understanding, perhaps, of the cub's need. The male stepped aside, allowing the mother to reunite with her young, but he didn't leave. He stood watch, a silent guardian in the fading storm. The mother tiger's reunion with her cubs was a flurry of warmth and relief, her rough tongue grooming their damp fur as they pressed against her. The cubs' whimpers softened into contented purrs, their small bodies finally at ease in her familiar scent. But the mother's eyes remained wary, flicking toward the male tiger who lingered at the edge of the clearing. His presence was an enigma. Why had he protected her cubs? The jungle was no place for trust, yet his actions spoke louder than his silence. The mother let out a low chuff, a cautious acknowledgement, before guiding her cubs back toward the cave, her limp betraying an injury from whatever ordeal had kept her away. Inside the cave, the mother tiger curled around her cubs, her warmth enveloping them as they drifted into a much-needed sleep. The male tiger settled near the entrance, his massive frame blocking the cold draft. The jungle outside was stirring now, birds calling as the storm's last echoes faded. But the mother's injury worried the male. Her hind leg bore deep claw marks, and the scent of blood was strong. He knew the jungle's predators, leopards, hyenas, even rival tigers, would be drawn to weakness. For now, he remained, his instincts torn between leaving and staying to protect this fragile family. As the sun climbed higher, the mother tiger stirred, her eyes scanning the cave. She rose, testing her injured leg, and let out a soft growl of frustration. The cubs whimpered, sensing her unease. The male tiger watched her struggle, then stood and approached slowly. He sniffed her wound, his demeanor calm but deliberate. To the cub's surprise, he began licking the gash gently, cleaning it with care. The mother tensed but allowed it, her trust in him growing, however reluctantly. This act of care was rare in the wild, where survival often trumped compassion. Days passed, and the unlikely trio, mother, cubs, and guardian, formed a fragile alliance. The male hunted for them, bringing back small game to sustain the family while the mother's leg healed. The cubs, growing bolder, began to play near him, tumbling over his massive paws and nipping at his tail. He tolerated their antics with a patience that belied his fierce appearance, occasionally letting out a playful chuff that made the cubs scamper with delight. The jungle, once a place of terror, began to feel like a home, however temporary. But peace in the jungle is fleeting. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a chilling howl echoed through the trees. A pack of hyenas, drawn by the scent of the mother's injury. The male tiger's ears flicked, his body tensing as he rose to his feet. The mother growled, her instincts kicking in despite her weakened state. The cubs huddled behind her, their play forgotten. The male stepped out into the clearing, his roar shaking the air, a warning to the unseen predators circling in the shadows. The hyenas emerged, their cackling laughter cutting through the dusk. There were 5 of them, their lean forms slinking closer, testing the male tiger's resolve. He didn't hesitate. With a thunderous charge, he lunged at the leader, his claws slashing through the air. The hyenas scattered but regrouped, their numbers giving them courage. The mother tiger, unable to stay back, limped forward, her roar joining the males. Together, they formed a formidable wall, their combined strength a beacon of defiance against the encroaching threat. The battle was fierce but brief. The male's power overwhelmed the hyenas, sending them fleeing into the night with yowls of defeat. The mother, though exhausted, stood her ground until the last threat vanished. Blood dripped from a shallow cut on the male's flank, but he shook it off, returning to the cave with a steady gait. The cubs rushed to him, nuzzling his legs, their fear replaced by awe. The mother met his gaze, and for the first time, she dipped her head in gratitude, a silent bond forming between them. Weeks turned into months, and the mother's strength returned. The cubs grew, their playful antics turning into the early skills of hunters. The male tiger, once a stranger, became a constant presence, teaching the cubs to stalk and pounce, his patience endless. The mother watched, her trust in him now unshakable. The jungle, with all its dangers, had forged an unlikely family, bound by survival and something deeper, an instinct that transcended blood. One morning, the male tiger stood at the edge of the clearing, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The mother sensed his restlessness, a silent understanding passing between them. He had stayed longer than any lone tiger would, but the call of the wild was strong. The cubs, now stronger and bolder, chased each other nearby, unaware of the change in the air. The mother approached the male, touching her nose to his in a quiet farewell. He chuffed softly, then turned, his massive form disappearing into the jungle's embrace. The mother and her cubs thrived in the seasons that followed, their bond unbreakable, forged in the storm that had brought them together with their unlikely guardian. The jungle carried whispers of the male tiger's legend, a lone protector who defied the wild's rules to save a family not his own. And somewhere, deep in the forest, his roar still echoed, a reminder that even in the harshest of worlds, compassion could carve a path through the rain.